So welcome back to our channel. I'm here today, we're actually in Bangkok, Thailand, but I've caught up with a friend of mine, Alvin, and we haven't seen each other for about 2 years, but we met at a Huawei event here, and we just thought we'd have a bit of a chat. Alvin has lived in China for 20 years, but currently we're both outside China. We just thought it might be an idea just to sort of chat about our thoughts and that on China and our experience living there. So take it away, Alvin.
Well, I feel good. Hey, thanks for inviting me to your show.
Welcome.
I feel great because I've actually left Shanghai sometimes just right after the Shanghai lockdown.
So you went through the lockdown.
Of course I did.
So just describe that to me a little bit.
In short, it's actually quite tough because we got stuck at home for like 70 days.
That's a long time, man.
70 days with 60 days stuck at home, literally
Whoa.
stuck at home. And we had to do PCR tests on a daily basis. So imagine every day, someone will come to your door and knock at your door, and then the entire family has to go downstairs and do PCR every day. That was like 70 days. And once we are out of that lockdown, we're still doing alternate days of lockdown. So it's quite tough, and I think it's probably tougher for my kids and my wife because
Sure.
I mean, it's not easy for them because my wife having to manage food for the family and also taking care of everyone. Emotionally, I think my daughter, she's actually very
How old's your daughter?
She's just turned 14.
Okay, so it's a hard time.
Very hard
for a
time.
teenager, man.
And also having to study from home. So online classes from March to the end of the semester in June. So it was very tough for her, and then not having friends, not meeting friends. So it's been very difficult.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
tough.
living in Shenzhen, we were more fortunate. We only had like a lockdown that was 5 days, and after that it was pretty. But for me, the sort of, I wouldn't say a hassle of getting a PCR test almost daily, but it's the times where you just didn't feel like going, or you forgot, and then you turn up somewhere, oh, sorry, you can't come in. and then, as you know, I left China because I'd been there for almost 3 years. I'd had my surgery there, and I was really desperately missing my family. So we decided to leave China. I will go back, but like right now, it's like even difficult to get back. And you actually attempted to go back, didn't you, at one point?
I mean, I actually left China to Hong Kong for a short period of time. And the plan was actually to return back to Shanghai after my work, right? And after 1 month of work, right, so I decided to go back I wanted to go back to Shanghai. And I tried. The trip to Shenzhen was not easy. It was not any easier.
Yeah, it's kind of a lottery system, isn't it? In Hong Kong, Tell me about that.
Yeah, like daily there are like 2,000. Just it's a quarter of 2,000 people that can get access into Shenzhen, and you got to get onto the lottery system, and on a daily basis there are like 60 to 70,000 people who are on that lottery system where they
2,000 places.
That's all you're gonna get.
Whoa.
And I tried. I mean, maybe I was just pure unlucky. I was on that lottery system for 2 weeks, and I was
no good.
No luck whatsoever.
Oh my God.
And the trip back to Shanghai, a direct flight, right? There was no direct flight, officially on any travel agent. And then what happened was through some friends, right? I actually got a number in Shenzhen that I could purchase a ticket back to Shanghai. And the ticket price was like, really expensive, like at least 20,000 to 25,000. Just a one-way.
Yeah, I think they're even still quite high. I know more Chinese airlines now are starting international routes again, but the tickets are still pretty expensive, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I was looking, I was thinking of going back before the end of this year, and looking into it, I have to get 2 PCR tests from 2 different places. You got quite a few hoops to jump through, and then I've got to leave again soon. It's just so frustrating. You can't sort of like traveling in and out of China like you could before COVID. I find it really frustrating, man.
Very, and because of that, the hassle of going back, the trouble. So I picked up my phone and I called up to my family and I said, why don't we go back to Malaysia? Because at least going back to Malaysia, the advantage is that, at least for my daughter, who is actually, she's in year 10 now, so so at least she can return to school.
Yes.
And at least there's some normalcy to her life, that she can, you know, play with her friends, go back to school, and just like any other kid, right? And then for my wife and for my family, entire family, they can lead a very normal life, and not being saddled by the zero COVID policy, right?
Yeah. I must say, my stepdaughter, she's like 7, and she spent more time out of school than at school in the last like 2 years. And I know they have online classes, but she finds it difficult to concentrate, and she doesn't want to do it. And then you have the problems where, because she's at home all the time, you've got to, you know, find somebody to look after her or try to keep her occupied. That's pretty difficult with a 7-year-old, you know, because they get bored really quickly, don't they? You know? So it's just really tough, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's never easy for kids, I mean, of any age, right? And obviously it's harder if you're younger. And I think even for my daughter, I mean, she had like emotional, you know, she broke down during the lockdown, literally just cried and said, you know, how much longer do I have to wait, right, before we can get out in the house, or when can I go back to school?
And you didn't know at that point, because it was just went on and on, didn't it? You know,
right. I mean, we initially we were supposed to be locked down for 5 days. That was the original, and it went on for like more than 2 months, right?
That's a long time.
Long time. And I think in general, I think many people, you know, suffered.
Absolutely.
I mean, to whatever degree, I think a lot of people went through tough time. And
mentally, it's tough. You know, it really is.
I cracked as well, because I thought, you know, staying at home within the confinement of that small, whatever the size of the apartment is never easy, because. And yeah, though you may be able to work, you know, because you have access to the internet and you can call, but the fact is that because once you're confined,
the fact that you just can't go out, it makes it like 10 times worse, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about, you know, freedom, right? If you know that you cannot leave your home, you have no freedom.
Yeah, that's
right.
Period.
And then you're stuck at home, and not knowing exactly when you can leave the house, that makes it even 10 times worse, right?
Sure. Yeah, it is really tough. And so, like I said, I was originally going to go back this year, but I think I'm going to delay that till next year. What are your thoughts? Are you thinking of going back there, or what's your thoughts?
I want to get back to China. I'm a Chinese PR, and my entire family is China. And we want to keep that. We love China, in the sense that the life has always been good in Shanghai, having lived there for about almost 20 years. We want to be there, but because of the current uncertainty, that becomes like a deal breaker, you know, for us to stay the long term.
It's super difficult when you have a business and you have to travel to other countries, and they have these restrictions on getting back in.
Right.
Because it's just, you know, you've not only got expensive tickets, you've got to do all the PCR tests, you've then got a quarantine. So like, if you're somebody like, previously I was like coming and going from China like 4 or 5 times a year. Imagine trying to do that now. It'd be like impossible, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I used to travel freely, like regularly before, I mean, pre-pandemic, and not being able to travel, especially for what I'm doing, is actually a big no.
Sure.
And I mean, well, I'm glad that we're here, because we can travel freely, right?
Yeah.
And I think, moving forward, right, unless if China change that rule or relax that quarantine rule, I think it's very difficult to get back, because as long as they don't change that, the ticket price is going to remain very high.
Yes.
Right? And obviously, if it adds up all the costs and also the emotional stress,
sure,
that all adds up, right?
Absolutely does. I mean, I'd love to be back there now, but I know that like the end of January, I have to leave again for business. So it's like I get there in December, and then I'm going to be needing to leave again January. So I've spent all that money for like 6 or 7 weeks there. It just makes no sense, you know.
Absolutely.
It's just I don't know. I just wish, I'm hoping they come up with something to open those borders up a little bit more, you know.
I mean, I hope with the new leadership, I hope that they will, you know, I know they have doubled down on zero COVID policy, but I hope that they will somehow like relax this restriction next year.
Yeah, I think
because it cannot go on forever, right?
It's gotta be costly to them in economic ways, surely, you know. I mean, I don't know, there's so much uncertainty. And it'd be great if they goes, right, okay, we're going to put a plan in place by the 31st of March, it's going to be open, but it's just so much uncertainty.
Right.
You can't plan, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the hardest part for us because is what you've just said. We have no clue when all these are ending. Mm-hmm. If we know for certain, like a date has been set, then that will ease our planning, right? Yeah. That's also will also ease we're more prepared emotionally.
That's right.
But we don't have a date, right? And when you double down on zero COVID, right, then it makes it very hard. Not just from emotional, business, your work, and all that stuff. So especially when the world has opened up, when you need to travel, whether I'm traveling for business and whether we are meeting up in Bangkok, we need to move around, right? And and not being able to move around, that becomes like a huge deal breaker for any one of us.
Absolutely, because like we are sort of, you know, we make content, we have to travel to different places, and that becomes difficult, and it sort of stifles what you can do, you know. And it's just so frustrating, really, you know. It really is.
I mean, let me ask you. I mean, so what's your plan? Are you looking to go back to China permanently in the future, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my wife lives there, my stepdaughter's there. I do want to go back, but the other thing, because I've been out for like 3 months and I've experienced that like freedom of movement, it feels like I'll be kind of locking myself in a bit if I go back. So it's kind of worse because I've experienced that freedom. And I'm having to go back to being kind of restricted because it's not that easy to travel around China either, you know.
Sure.
So that's but yeah, obviously long term, I am looking to go back.
I mean,
there for sure, you know.
I'm sure it's hard because I've also tasted freedom, right? I have traveled from Hong Kong to Malaysia to Singapore, now back to Thailand, and then I'm going to travel around the region in the next couple of months. So moving into China, the only reason I will return is that if the travel rule is
relaxed
relaxed,
yeah,
massively. Otherwise, right, like what you're saying, you're going to go back and still lock down, right? Then there's no incentive to actually return at this point of time in the short term. I'm sure in the long term they will figure that out, but short term painful.
I just wish I knew what the sort of goals they're aiming for before they do that, but it's like nobody says, do they? It's like you just don't know, you know, and that's the biggest issue. If they says, right, okay, we get 95% vaccinated, we do this and this, and then we're going to open up. But there's just like at the moment, I find it hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
You know?
So what I mean, so what would be like at the end of the tunnel looks like? I mean,
light at the end of the tunnel would be able to be move in and out of China without, you know, I can accept getting a test before I go there, but like the prices for the flights are very prohibitive, and the thought of having to do like a 7-day plus a 3-day quarantine just doesn't appeal to me at all, because, you know, that's not a one-time thing. That's if you then leave and 2 weeks later you come back, all the same again, you know, and that's just too much for me, really.
Right.
I find that really difficult to.
I mean, to me, what's ideal is that the same rule as in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think Hong Kong have got a good system. Yeah,
that would be
vaccine passport, right?
Right.
Yeah, when we left China, we came into Hong Kong, no quarantine, because we'd been in Guangdong for 14 days. And the first day we were there, we have problems, nowhere had let us in. Then we find, okay, you need to get your vaccine registered on an app.
Right.
As soon as we got that done, it was like, no problem. I have no problem wearing a mask.
Right.
You know, I have no problem wearing a mask.
Yeah, we are wearing a mask most of the time as well.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, what I've found is traveling around is like all the Southeast Asian countries, pretty much mask wearing is like what's happening. You go to European, I mean, the UK, it's almost as if COVID doesn't exist. And the same with Italy, you know. It's like COVID, what the hell is COVID? You know, nobody's wearing a mask. In fact, I got back to the UK, and because I've been used to wearing a mask for like almost 3 years in China, I started wearing it when I first returned to the UK, and people are looking at me as if I'm some sort of guy with 3 heads, you know. And, but when we went to Malaysia, I noticed there a majority of people wear, not everybody, but a majority of people, you know, and that's the same in Thailand. It was the same in Philippines. But yeah, you went to South Africa as well, and that was kind of half-half. Like half the people were wearing masks, half weren't. But there's been no restrictions other than that. Oh, tell a lie. We went to the Philippines, check in the hotel, and before we boarded the flight, you have to show vaccine certificate. Just show the vaccine certificate. Okay, you're good to go.
Right.
And that was it.
Right.
Anywhere else, nothing.
Right. I mean, all over Asia, I think it's pretty much open in the sense that I think in general, the wearing of mask, mandatory wearing of mask is actually not there. But most people are just wearing it just to protect themselves and also to protect others as well.
Actually, it's not mandatory here in Thailand, but like pretty much everybody wears them, especially the locals.
Right. I mean, from what my observation in Thailand is that in Bangkok is that most people are wearing it. I think 90%.
I'd say so. Yeah, maybe even higher than
right.
that.
Right. And people are aware of the, you know, I don't think people want to contract the disease, but they are aware that, you know, they'll get it at some point.
Yeah, well, I got it within a week of being back in the UK. I had like 2 days of fever, bit of a sore throat, and interestingly, my dad caught it from me. Oliver gave it to me, I gave it to my dad. Now my dad's 85, right? And he had the most mild symptoms you could imagine, literally 2 or 3 days, and he was fine.
Yeah.
He'd been vaccinated, of course.
Same. I mean, I got my COVID like 2 weeks back into Malaysia, and I had you know 2 days of hardship because I had fever, I have body ache and all that, and I literally recovered on the 5th day when I did my rapid test, and it was showing negative already on the 5th day.
Pretty much the same as me.
So it's really, I mean, it's really it's more or less like flu. Is not exactly flu, but it's more or less like flu. So it's not deadly as it seems from.
Yeah, I think maybe the early variants were a lot worse than the variants now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you know, to sort of summarize, I'm just really hoping that China can find some sort of solution to allow travel to open up again much more freely. You know?
Right. I mean, I share the same sentiment. I mean, I want to go back to China. I want to go back to Shanghai. There are things to be done, and I have friends I've not met for a long time, and business partners that I need to meet. But unless those conditions changes, I think I won't be heading back anytime soon.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty much the same as that. Anyway, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, mate.
I'll leave Alvin's details down in the description, and if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you do like the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. But as always, for now, take care.
Cheers. Good, man.
That was all right. Yeah, it's good.
One take.
Yeah, that's good, man. I think it's good when you do it like that because it's a bit more natural, it's a bit more casual, flowing and stuff. I think that'll make a good video, man.
We are pro.
Yeah. That was really cool.
One take.
Yeah, that was good, man.
Right, good. But the magnet is actually quite.
It's a good idea, isn't it? DJI is so good, man.
So good.
They like.
How much is one of these, huh?
The set was like 1,600 RMB.
This one, you said.
So you get 2. Just cool. They put all the like adapters here so you can plug it into your phone.
It's cool. I mean, look at the design.
Yeah. They're so good. And we got DJI drones as well and other stuff. They just think about all the little things, like just that magnet thing is such a good idea. Because normally you've got to clip it and it's this way, so it's pointing the wrong way. So these kind of little really cool ideas, really. I think.
Cool.
They're really good, man.
I think the Chinese product these days has got great design.
Some of it.
Xiaomi and all that.
Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Huawei, DJI, Lenovo. They have some really nice stuff, don't they?
Good
And
stuff.
you get that like Indian taxi driver on the video, man.
Oh,
Yeah, it's all false, it's all fake. He's going